All right, NDI November continues today. Very special NDI November because not only are we bringing in a special guest, David Doko from Canon, we're introducing Canon PTZ cameras. Canon's got an incredible line of 4K PTZ cameras, and we're going to tell you all about them on today's show with David. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Gary. And I'm really excited to introduce everyone in this audience to the Canon line of indoor and outdoor PTZs.
Cool. We've got the N300 starting at $26.99, the N500 at $53.99, and the N700 at $96.99. These are available in your choice of black or white. They're all 4K, and then they've got different levels of features. Today's show, we're really going to concentrate on that new model, the CR-N700, which is your new top-of-the-line model, and I want to dive right into that. But before we do, I also want to mention that you guys have a controller also, correct? The PTZ controller?
Yes, and I actually have it right here with me, and I'm going to flip over just for a second so you can see that in a small window that we have a control. You could see it in the slide, but here with my hands, you can see that it just has the traditional PTZ pan, tilt, zoom controls here available for people who are more used to the production environment. And from that, you can actually, from this controller, you can change a lot of the settings, including a lot of the color settings, whether it's white balance, black balance, some of the speed controls, and you can also dial in presets for certain movements. And you can control up to 100 cameras actually with this, all by IP, and using just as it's a nice segue into this discussion about the protocols that we support for camera control. One is the XC protocol, which is Canon's proprietary protocol. We introduced this so that we can control not only our PTZ cameras, but also our line of cinema cameras, such as the C300 Mark III and the C500 Mark II, and now the C70 with its new firmware. So in line with our PTZs in combination, you could actually control this. Control our cinema cameras, and a lot of productions do this so that they can have a mobile camera and also these static PTZ cameras. And of course, we also support VISCA, which is Sony's protocol for camera control, and the subject of your series, NDI HX specifically.
Yeah, very excited.
So
now,
yeah, go ahead.
Now, it's good that you guys have NDI HX, and we'll get a little bit more deeper into that. But I also want to talk about that you also support multiple streaming protocols directly from the camera. So talk to that a little bit. Right.
So with the introduction of the N700, we start to support SRT, and currently it's the only model right now is the N700, but we do expect that with the N500 that we will support SRT in that as well, the midline model in our lineup. And so yes, and so with SRT, RTMP, and NDI HX, we do support a suite of video over IP protocols that could be useful for your clients.
Cool. So now let's talk a little bit about NDI. You guys have NDI HX2 support. That's in all three cameras. One of the questions that I know we're going to get, so I'll just ask it already, is what about NDI HX3, the new protocol level that was introduced by VizRT and NDI that really closes the gap with full NDI and also sets a whole nother level of NDI reliability, low latency, and other things like that?
Right. I understand the benefits of HX3, and I've read about the why people would want to use HX3 for the current environment that our PTZs are being installed in. It wouldn't be of that much benefit right now for these PTZs, but we are considering, of course, that new version of HX3, and maybe you could speak to some case scenario where that actually came in useful, where people were using HX3 versus HX2, privately, and then we could probably incorporate that as a reason why we will go to HX3, in the future.
The biggest advantage of HX3 is it closes the gap of latency with full NDI, and you do have latency issues with NDI HX by the nature of that it's compressed and has to be decompressed.
HX2.
And then also it is actually more efficient as far as the compression, as far as being able to have more devices on the same network without worrying about bogging down what your thoughts. So there's definitely advantages to
Right.
it, and we hope to see you do it. And I'm sure you guys will. But let's jump into this new camera, the N700. Now, I've got some slides here. You've got a demo here. I think it'll be much more interesting for the home folks watching this to watch the demo. This is a high-end professional broadcast level camera that is suitable for doing live events like concerts, sporting events, things like that in large scale venues. It's a serious piece of hardware at almost 10K, but take away the demonstration and show us why it's worth every penny.
Okay, thank you. I'll share my screen. The first user interface I'd like to show is my web browser, and you could use your web browser to access the user interface for any of these PTZs. They all have web browser built in, so that you can just connect to them on an IP address. You see that I have it, just at an IP4 address, and that from this user interface on the web, you can control like pretty much anything, including the PTZ controls. You can control the white balance. You can control really a lot of the gammas. So with the C700, one of the great things about this is that we have added additional gammas and transfer functions. We have expanded the range of Rec 709 gammas available to you, and we have also added PQ. The transfer function PQ for HDR and hybrid log gamma HLG. So this is new for the N700, which the N500 currently does not support. Of course, we have Canlog 3, and normally with Canlog 3, you would not broadcast that live, but we offered that as an option if you were separately or simultaneously recording for further color grading down the line in post-production. Now, I'm going to go over to a very unique feature of Canon in general, but specifically for the N700, we do offer our very best technology for focusing. And our cinema cameras and our high-end DSLRs all support what's called dual pixel autofocus. With dual pixel autofocus, it's different than phase-based autofocus, which our competitors have. This makes Canon really stand out across our camera lines. So with dual pixel autofocus, it uses the native advantages of our sensors, our CMOS sensors. We make these sensors ourselves, which each have two diodes. And using two diodes per prototype, they use a special technology which compares the outputs of the diodes to really hone in a very fast way the focusing capabilities and accuracy. So with face detection, we offer face detection, which some of our competitors may or may not have, but we do offer that, and that really just locks, as you can see, it locks in on my face, and it's with the dual pixel autofocus, I can say that it is the most accurate of all of the PTZ lines out there. This technology for autofocusing, and it also offers eye detection. So not only can you just make sure that you're getting the head. The proportions of the head, you can actually hone in on the eyes, really pinpoint which eye. So you can actually, you could select which eye you want to focus in. It's that precise. Again, one of the big, huge advantages of these Canon PTZs is you get that. You get image stabilization, and you get another really unique thing with the N700. You get these dual crop modes. So the N700 has both a 12G and a 3G SDI out on the back of the PTZs, and because of that, because it's a 4K sensor, you can send out simultaneous streams, two streams. One that you can choose to either go full frame, and I'm gonna, you can just in this interface you can see that I can just decide to send out just the full frame, downscale to HD. Or you could, and the second one can be a HD crop of that full frame. Similarly, the first one can be an HD crop of that full frame image. So you can both send out a wide and a tight, fully utilizing that 4K resolution of the sensor and really maximizing the utility and the flexibility of this camera. I'm gonna switch now that I've shown you some of the capabilities of this user interface. I'm just going to switch over while I'm doing this demo to another application which we call the remote control camera application, and this I can.
Cool. While you're doing that, in fact, we'll bring up our little
This.
screen up
Oh,
here,
there
full
it goes.
screen, and let everyone see that for a little bit while
Yeah,
you set
sure.
up.
Yeah, the remote control camera application, as you see in your slide, is the is really another application that you can install on Windows or a Windows Surface, and you can either use touch screen on a Windows Surface or you could just use your mouse on a Windows laptop. And really, it's another way to control it in a more visual way. It rather than the web UI, which is just one camera per page, you can see all four cameras. As you can see here in my demonstration. So here I have on one, I have the N700. On two, I have the N500, and on the third window, I have the N300. And I'll go into the differences between these three cameras in a later part of this presentation. But as you can see, you could just select each one of these, and whether it's the N500 or the N700. With the N700, as with the other cameras, you can select a lot of the same image parameters and image adjustment features that you saw in the web interface. However, it's all kind of consolidated into this one very nice interface. And similarly, with the web interface, if you choose to, you can actually control the camera's PTZ functions, the zoom, the pan and tilt. From, as you can see, I could just use the cursor keys of this interface. You could use that to control your cameras, all three of them at the same time, just without a controller. If you don't want to choose, if you choose not to use a controller. And in the future, we do hope to incorporate the same kind of windowing that you could see for the crop features in very, very soon, I hope, into this interface, so that you can also choose your crop windows and crop sizes for multiple feeds from the N700.
Awesome stuff. Now,
If there's
go.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, why don't we talk a little bit? You mentioned it about there are three products in the product line. So if you could quickly give a little overview of how you go from the N300 to the 507, what makes good, better, best, or great, fantastic, awesome, incredible?
Yeah, a great question. And I'd like to summarize really the capabilities of each of these cameras. The N300 is based on a half-inch chip, a little slightly larger than a half-inch chip, 1 over 2/3 inch chip. And the N500 and N700 are based upon our 1-inch sensor, the same sensor that we use on our very very handy the XF605 and XF705. So the N300 uses a smaller sensor. It makes it so that it's lighter and smaller. You could really tuck it into a lot of the corners that you might not be able to put in some of the larger PTZs, including the N500 and N700. The N500 and the N700 have that 1-inch sensor, so they are necessarily better in low light situations. With the larger sensor, you get the bigger photo pixels, and so that'll just give you more of an advantage for the high ISOs when you want to shoot in dark environments. And as a lot of people know, that in these events, whether it's for house of worship or for concerts, you're often dealing with low light situations. So for low light situations, I would recommend that N500 or the N700. The N300 has UHD 4K up to 30 frames per second, as does the N500. They both have 3G connectors in the back. The N700 upgrades that capability. So now you can do, with the N700, you can do 4K at 60p, and you could do it at 10-bit 422 color sampling. So you're really getting the highest quality color and also the highest quality frame rates, the fastest frame rates of the line with the N700. And really, those are some of the basic capabilities. They're all capable of PoE plus. The N700 requires PoE plus plus, so you don't necessarily need a power supply, separate from your LAN connection. And so that will be an advantage for a lot of people who don't want to deal with providing separate power for that.
And with NDI, you can get everything with the one connection. So lots of cool
That's
advantages
correct.
to this camera. That's so exciting. And one of the things that we've got a slide of, the N700's got a pretty impressive jack panel on it as well, including 2 XLRs. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. You can send in two XLR feeds, and that will get sent out embedded into either, through NDI or through via SDI. So that's a very useful option. And also we changed the power connector on the N700 just to make it more unique and more robust. We changed it over to XLR power. And also for the RS422, we did provide a separate jack for that in all our PTZs, and you do see those unique, the 12G and the 3G and the time code all there for you. One of the other unique things about the N700 is that there is a USB slot. They all have USB slots. But the N700, through that USB slot, you can load 3D LUTs, so that if you want to put a LUT on the Log 3 that you custom make in DaVinci Resolve, you can do it, and it'll send that out through those SDI feeds. Really, it's a built-in LUT box. Another value-added proposition for people who are using our N700.
Very cool. So I want to talk about something that we find all the time, and you mentioned before, which is low light, because we sell a lot of PTZ cameras into church house of worship. And I think the biggest complaint that I get on PTZ cameras in house of worship is, I love the camera, the movement's okay, but we don't have that kind of lighting that, Broadway shows do and stuff like that. We need something that's a better sensor for low light. You guys have actually taken your cinema cameras and turned them into PTZs. Am I oversimplifying here? That's what I'm hearing.
The PTZs do have that 1-inch sensor, which, if for anyone who's actually used the X605 or 705, it really does very well in low light. And then the Digic processing, the N700 has the latest Digic 7, really helps to reduce the noise, and in combination with Canon Log 3 or one of the new the new Rec 709 gammas, it really helps to kind of give you a very pleasing image. It's Canon color science, the same color science that we put into our cinema cameras. You get them in the PTZs, and I think that's why a lot of people will find these to be cinematic, because they are based on the same color science that our cinema cameras have.
I think that's the word that I was looking for. That we've never discussed PTZ cameras with any of our other vendors and used the term color science, because really that's a cinema world. That's where Canon and Red Camera and the Blackmagic high-end cameras kind of live on those cinema level, where you're getting into things where. One of the things about the color science that I think is real important that you told me about when we were kind of talking about setting up the show is I can go live at streaming resolutions, but I can then pump out via SDI what would be, I would say, the cinema level stuff for when I want to do that heavier work, that heavier grading. Maybe I'm going to Resolve, or I just want a different look for the finished product. And I think that's super cool. And I even think it's cool for sports, because instant replays look a little cooler when they're done that way too. There's so many different ways where I can see this camera fitting into that higher end event space. So this isn't for the school on a budget. It's not for the person putting in a little AV conference room. But if you're really looking to get that next level production quality, where you want to look like you're doing something better, where you really want a high-end cameraman using a high-end camera, but you just don't have the cameraman in the space to put them, these cameras really fit in there. And I think you're in a space where it's a pretty highfalutin space. These cameras they're not, cheap's the wrong word. They're not overly expensive. They're not inexpensive. They cost what you'd expect given what you see in there. But I'm just blown away that not only do I get all these features, but I also get NDI on this camera line. And this is a camera line that isn't brand new to you guys, but you're still in heavy duty development, and new features and new software, things are going to be added as we go. So talk about where the future's going for these cameras in general. Don't give away anything that's going to get you fired, but just kind of some of the stuff that you're thinking about doing in the near future.
Yeah, I think we, of course, are aware of what our competitors are doing, and for low light, we definitely are aware that there's always going to be a need for cameras that do better and better in low light situations. That's regardless. Of course, what can we do to develop that? There's various methodologies, and I can't discuss it really, but we are very, very sensitive to the fact that's a good word to use, of course, sensitive to the fact that, that a lot of these PTZs are being used in low light situations. And I think you really, really drove that point across, Gary, and that's something that, of course, we're always going to continuously try to improve. We hear you about the one SRT employment.
Yep.
It's really important across the line, for any new cameras coming out, and also, as you mentioned, the HX3, where I'm not aware of where that development is, but definitely I hear you, and we're going to be very, very interested in trying to see whether that or not that benefits either our current line or our future camera line. With that version of NDI. Of course, NDI is extremely important to this industry as you are doing this whole series on it, and so we want to make sure that we support it to the fullest.
Well, I got to tell you, I think you did a phenomenal job showing off why Canon PTZ cameras are more than just cameras. They're more than just PTZs. It's a whole nother level of product for us, and I'm so glad to be offering those to our customers. Now, NDI November, big deal, but not only do we make NDI November, but you're towards the end of NDI November, and there's this thing coming up called Black Friday, and boom, you guys have some Black Friday specials going on. So I just wanted to mention that there is a $300 instant rebate going into effect on the CN300 and the CRN 500, black or white, your choice. So take advantage of that big one. And now I want to cut back to you, because whenever I have a guest on the show, I always like to tell the guest, hey, thank you for coming on, and now you give you a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever you need. Wrap up the show. Tell us what you want to tell us. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Thank you very much for really helping to, provide information to your customer base about these PTZs. They're very important for business to business, and we really appreciate your support for our line. I think with the N700, just like you mentioned, you can have multiple feeds, one spigot with the Canalog 3 that you can, or HDR, which you can store for later use, and then you can have that Rec 709 image for live streaming, because everything right now live streaming is Rec 709. So I really appreciate your inviting us to profile our models and our lineup, and I hope that we can work together to really advance this field.
Awesome. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you. You're a great guest. Let's bring this slide up full screen now. NDI packed with webinars, guys. Even though we're later in the month, all the webinars we did are available for you to watch on demand, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, from the NDI November website. But more than that, we're still doing giveaways, folks. So it's not too late to register for NDI November. Go to ndinovember.com and register. We're giving away PTZ cameras. We're giving away software. We're giving away webcams. And we're giving everyone who registers the digital version of the unofficial guide to NDI. So we're very excited about that. We want to thank everyone who's come to these webinars and watched them. We want to thank Canon for being on today's show. Once again, NDI November, packed with webinars. This is Gary. Thank you very much for tuning in. One more week of NDI November, and then it's time for Black Friday sales, folks. See you then. Peace.
NDI November is going on all month long for all things NDI. Your one-time registration gains you access to all the informative webinars with great guests and tons of giveaways. Check out the full schedule and register at ndinovember.com. Giveaway prizes include BirdDog P100, JVC PZ200N camera, Telestream Wirecast Pro license, NewTek University class, and more. See all the giveaway prizes and register now at ndinovember.com.